Hello everyone, my name is Angela and today I'm going to be reviewing The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This review will be spoiler free and pretty detailed, but no spoilers, so stay tuned if you want to hear my thoughts on this book. Can we take a minute for this gorgeous Barnes & Noble exclusive? I think it's really stunning, especially since I didn't have to pay any extra for it. This is being marketed as a darkly romantasy fairy tale type of book, and I think that that is a very accurate description of this book. So within this fantasy world, we are in the Stonewater Kingdom, and we do have this lovely map, and as you can see, the kingdom isn't huge, so in terms of fantasy books and their scopes, this one is pretty contained to this kingdom, which doesn't seem to be very large. So it isn't the kind of fantasy book where you're getting tons of complex world building and dozens of names and dozens of creatures and magic systems. It is pretty contained to this one kingdom. Our main character, Sybil, is a diviner who lives at this legendary cathedral, and she was chosen to become this diviner because she was a foundling, which is basically an orphan. She was found sick and dying and without parents, and she was brought to this cathedral by her mother? I don't know what they call her. She's basically the leader of the diviners at this cathedral, and that's really the only mother figure that Sybil has. The catalyst for this story is when the king and a group of his knights arrives at the cathedral to have his fortune told by these diviners. He is the new king, and so it is customary for the new leader of the kingdom to have his fortune told by these diviners, and the way that they divine fortunes is that they kind of drown and dream and meet within their dreams these gods called the omens, and through that they are able to give a good or bad fortune to whoever has come to the cathedral. One of the knights that arrives with the king may or may not be a love interest who Sybil gets off to a rough start with, because he does not really prescribe to this religion, which is essentially Sybil's whole life. So obviously that is a bit of a touchy subject between them and something that does not immediately endear her to him. And then something dangerous and mysterious starts happening around the cathedral, which causes Sybil to leave for the very first time in her life in order to kind of solve this mystery. I didn't know what this mystery was. I think it is in the synopsis, but just in case you don't want to know why Sybil leaves the cathedral, I will leave it there. So what did I rate this book? I gave The Night and the Moth 4.5 stars. I do think upon reflection 4.5 might be a little generous. I'm actually going to put this down because this is actually really heavy. It's a lot heavier than a regular hardback of this length. I will say it is very good quality. The pages are whiter and a different material than the average book. So that was also something that I enjoyed about this physical copy. I think a more accurate rating would be somewhere between 4.25 and 4.5, but I'm not going to officially change it because that's how I felt at the end, and I did really, really enjoy this book. It just definitely wasn't quite a 5-star read for me. Rachel Gillig is most known for her Shepherd King duology. The first book is called One Dark Window, and I actually haven't read that book, so I went into this book not knowing if I liked Rachel Gillig's writing, because the premise of this book just sounded like something that I would love, especially the atmosphere and the knights and the medieval setting and the cathedral. All of those dark gothic medieval vibes are something that I really love. And I do think that the strongest elements of this book are the atmosphere and the description and the setting. I think that this book evokes such specific feelings, and even if you don't absolutely love the plot or the characters, I think you will enjoy the atmosphere that Rachel Gillig creates, unless that's not really your thing. So if the synopsis doesn't sound good to you, maybe skip this one, but if it does sound intriguing, I think she really delivers on what she promises, what the premise promises. I enjoyed the characters a lot. There is a side character who is a sentient gargoyle who adds a bit of levity and fun and humor to this book, which is often quite serious. It's not an extremely dark book in terms of the content, but I would say the vibes are dark if that makes any sense. It's not extremely gory or violent or, you know, disgusting, so don't worry about that. I know it says dark, but darkness, more of a sense of like dark medieval aesthetics. Like I said earlier, the scope of this fantasy book is pretty small compared to a lot of other like high fantasy books that I have read. This book isn't necessarily trying to be the most complex fantasy book that you've ever read, so I will say my least favorite part of this book was probably the plot. Compared to the other fantasy books that I read, especially long ones with really complex world building and plots and magic and politics, this one was not extremely complex. The plot was a little simplistic. I don't think anything in it was too shocking. It was a little bit predictable and you kind of felt like you knew what was going to happen step by step, which is why I think for me it's not a 5-star. But again, because I liked the atmosphere and the writing and the characters, it wasn't like a bad thing that the plot wasn't the best. Like, it didn't ruin the book for me, and so I think that if you enjoy those other elements, you'll have a really good time with this book. So if you are a very plot-driven fantasy reader, maybe this one isn't going to be great for you, but if you love an aesthetic, if you love an atmosphere, a specific writing style that evokes certain emotions, I think this book was very unique. I wouldn't easily be able to point out another book that made me feel similarly. So I would give it a try if you would like a atmospheric fantasy book. I haven't even really touched on the romance. I did like the romance. For me, the thing that sticks out most in this book isn't the romance. So if you're looking for a very romance-centric, smut-centric kind of fantasy book, I don't think that this is going to be for you. But I do think the romance is good and strong. I can see a certain reader expecting this to be like in-your-face fantasy romance, and it's not. But there definitely is a strong romance, so I think it just depends on your taste in romantasy, if you read romantasy. Honestly, I don't really read romantasy, so I was expecting maybe a bit more, and I was glad that it was a little more subtle. So overall, obviously, I really enjoyed this book. This was definitely a highlight of my recent reading months, and I'm very excited that a pre-order that I kind of went into blindly worked out really well, and it's really beautiful. Makes me happy. This is a series, so I am excited to read the next book when it comes out, hopefully next year. That is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know any of your thoughts on this book. If you want to read it, if you have read it, if you think it sounds awful, let me know. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more bookish content from me, and I hope you have a lovely week.